Welcome to the Gia and Sheila show. It's all about energy. Gia has been on a vacation that I know for me and most people I know, we would love to experience what you've just experienced. And we've decided today to shift the energy talk on her trip to Machu Picchu. So Gia, thanks for, I think she's just barely had time to unpack, and I got her right on while she still had the energy with her. How was that vacation?
Oh, God, it was fantastic. And I'm a Taurus. We can really get stuck in our homes, so for me to go travel, and, traveling is pretty stressful these days. It had to be something big like Machu Picchu to get me out of my little comfort box. And I went with my husband and I went with my son, and they're both highly spiritual, but we don't sit around and talk about it. But it's there. It's just sort of part of who they are. And so and we're also highly individualistic. So it's always interesting traveling because we don't necessarily all want to sit down and eat at the same time. So we're getting better at that kind of thing. But to get to Machu Picchu is part of the journey. And Peru only lets you fly in to Lima, their capital, to begin with. And then from there, it's like a plane, train, taxi, bus thing to get to Machu Picchu. And each time you go, you're shifting energy. So I want to invite everybody today who's listening to shift in energies as I kind of recap our little our journey through there. We weren't up there very long. I know some people who went up to Machu Picchu and came back in one day, which we did it. We spent the night up there and then came back, and even that wasn't enough time. But the challenge for me is that I'm so introverted, and I want to listen to the energies and take them in, and yet at the same time I have to be, interacting with my husband and my son and looking like a normal person.
Right.
So those are kind of some of my challenges. When you fly into Lima, Peru, oh, God, this is what I was so excited about with Peru. So there are crystalline grids on the planet. I'm going to invite everybody to just right now go ahead and ask to connect to the crystalline grids of the planet. Some places the crystalline grids are really strong, and Peru is one of them. It was just right there, and I was like, wow, I'm loving this. But Lima itself is just a great big city. I could care less about cities. I don't like museums. I don't like ancient churches. I don't like now. Right. On the other hand, Lima had incredible food, so that was great. But I only need a little bowl of something and I'm done. They do 2-hour meals. And I was like, oh, God, this is too much food, So there was all these things I had to be dealing with. So anyway, we fly into Peru, Lima. We're just there a day. And Lima is at sea level. From there, we flew to Cusco, which was the capital of the Inca Empire. And Cusco's up quite high. It's 11,000 feet. Now, I live at 6,000 feet, so I didn't think it would affect me much, that whole altitude sickness thing. And it did. I got the headache. I got tired. I actually had some other symptoms. And as I was sharing with you, Sheila, earlier, looking back, I realized, I was shifting in energies, getting ready for Machu Picchu, because the energy in Machu Picchu is so heightened. So now, as we're talking, Sheila and I, and also tuning into all those who will be listening, I can feel you guys shift. You're shifting in your energy to the Cusco energy, which was up higher. Now, Cusco, just a brief history, the Inca Empire kind of like the Mayans. They were very powerful, very strong in the pre-1400s. So they pre-Columbian times is what they call that. And then along come the Spaniards, and the Spaniards were just after the gold. And so the Incans had gold, but they just liked it because they worshiped the sun, and gold was shiny yellow like the sun. Right? It didn't have that value on it that the European nations put. So the Incans treated the Spaniards as they treated each other, and which didn't mean the Incans had their own wars and stuff going on. In fact, they were in the middle of kind of a civil war when the Spaniards landed. It's why the Spaniards were able to kind of decimate them. So any countries out there that might feel a bit divided right now, you might learn from your history that not a good time to be divided. Anyway, so Cusco itself felt very colonial, the Spanish colonial. There's the big churches based around the beautiful plaza. And I'm used to this from Mexico. Again, I'm not that interested in it. For me, it was all about Machu Picchu. And I think when we had like a half day in Cusco. One of the funny things about Cusco, it's up so high. When you fly into it, normally you descend to land at the airport. We ascended to land at the airport. It was the oddest feeling. And I kept trying to say that to my husband, like, did you notice? We went up to land, said down. He's like, huh? We weren't, I don't know. I got lost in translation. So anyway, we had a good time in Cusco, and you could feel our energies were shifting. Then the next day, we had our train tickets. It's so weird. It's kind of like it was a dream. But now when I look back, it's like, did we go in the morning? Did we go in the afternoon? Like, what time did we go? Anyway, we had to go out of Cusco by taxi to the train station. Then we get in the train. That's a 3-hour train ride, and you follow this river that's considered very sacred, and you go from the beautiful hillsides that are still it was all Incan towns, and they had their little plots of land that they would grow corn and what were some of the other things that they grew? Their own kinds of beans and those typical foods that they eat. And then the terrain started to change, and we went into what's called the cloud rainforest. And the train was so great to experience this all with. And we were being served food, and that was all really good for train food. And
train food is good.
Yeah, it was. That part was really fun. It was just a different experience for us. And so then we arrived into the little town that's below Machu Picchu, and it's called Aguas Calientes, which means mineral water or hot water. So they had mineral baths there that we never actually made it to. Our plan was to spend the afternoon there and the night, and then the next morning go up to Machu Picchu. The big thing to do in Machu Picchu is to get up there early in the morning and watch the sunrise over these spectacular mountain peaks. Now, the day that we arrived in Aguascalientes, it was a beautiful sunny day, and we were meeting. So we were with my son, who was with a whole nother group of people on doing his semester at sea school. And so all these people were from his school, semester at sea, and we would meet and we would get tips from them. Well, the first thing that happened was they were coming back, and they had been bitten by some kind of, a fly or something from one end of their body to the other. So we ran off and got our bug spray. But some of them were bitten so badly, they ended up needing hospital treatment and stuff because they had such big reactions to it. And for that reason, we didn't go to the hot springs that were there because that was one of the worst buggy places around. So we didn't do that. But this little town of Aguascalientes, now Aguascalientes is lower than Cusco, but the vibration is higher. So it's kind of a weird little thing there, but I just want everybody, as I'm talking this, if they step into this, Aguascalientes is a little town that was created specifically for travelers to be able to reach Machu Picchu. There are no cars. There's trains that run through the town, and there's the buses that take you up to Machu Picchu, and that's it. Everything is brought in by train. So we were talking to like waiters, and we're like, well, are you from here originally? Where are you from? And they might be from another little town. It's like, well, how do you, like to travel to, take a vacation? It was just 3 hours by train just to get started, So it was kind of interesting, very different lifestyle, and very centered around Machu Picchu. And I talked with one, I actually had a chance to get like a foot massage there, and I was talking to Ruth, the woman who was giving it to me, and I was like, well, do you even go up to Machu Picchu? And she goes, yes, when my friends come or a special family, we go up there. But she says, we go for the mystical, the energy of it. Well, she was talking my talk, so I had no problem, that they go up there specifically for the energy of Machu Picchu, which is tricky to do because there's like hundreds of tourists on, who are running around doing all the tourist thing. But anyway, so I couldn't get up at 4 a.m. to stand in line for an hour and a half to get up to Machu Picchu, at the crack of dawn. Well, it turns out, when you're in the flow, when everything just starts, like however it unfolds, it's like, oh, that was just perfect. We just did that perfectly. We just, you're in that synchronistic flow, and we were in that. Everywhere I go, I connect to the grids of the land, the crystalline grids of the land, and then the system that I'm in, the grid system that I'm in. So I was very connected with the Incans, and specifically the ancient Incans. Yes. Machu Picchu was created for one of the kings. It was like one of the kings, I don't know, summer home, winter home, I didn't know what to call it. But they built it on the premises of sacred geometry, their reverence for nature. Everything they did with their crops would be equivalent to our permaculture today. And so they built all those terraces. I know everybody's seen a picture of Machu Picchu. If not, run off and Google that. And you can see all these terraces. Well, all on those terraces, they would grow crops. And so then they had this incredible water systems that went through this, and you're up 7,000 feet, and somehow, I don't know how they got water up there. I didn't get that part. So we ended up getting up there, it was before 7, and we hadn't missed the sunrise because the fog was way down low. You could kind of see Machu Picchu itself, but you couldn't see any of the hillsides. Well, my son had signed up to go up this one trail that went off to the left. And so my husband and I just wandered around for a while, and it was so wonderful in the fog because you just felt like you were there alone. So now I'm going to ask everybody to shift into the energies of Machu Picchu that were so sacred, even with people that look like ants crawling all over it. And being dyslexic, we did everything backwards. Well, it ended up, we were never with the crowds. We were always in our own little space, wandering around, having our own experience. It was just, it was truly magical walking around. So then the sun started to burn through the clouds, and at that time, my son had was coming back from the top of his hike, and he got this spectacular view of Machu Picchu. And because it was still early, you couldn't even see, like, there's no people in his photo. I don't know how he did that, but it was incredible. So we were very connected to the land, and to the energies that were there. That was our experience of it. We didn't hire a guide because they talk too much, you know, and it keeps you out of experiencing the energy. Right. So then when my son came back, we did another loop down through all the different sections of Machu Picchu again, but this time we were doing it in the same direction everybody else. So it was just crowds upon crowds. They had this one sacred rock that I really wanted a picture with this sacred rock, and it was set up. Its whole purpose was energy, and it was in alignment with the four directions and these 4 peaks that were around Machu Picchu. But they had a line of people going through, so I barely carved out a moment, you know, to get a picture of it. But we energy people have our other ways to connect. And then we were able to kind of find a little corner that was off the beaten path, so to speak, and we just hung out there for a while. It looked like we were napping, but we were all of us were doing our own forms of meditating. Nice. And I haven't had a chance yet, so now this is really cool because I can do it on this show, is to really, I was just soaking up all of that energy, and I hadn't really translated that right into my conscious awareness. The divine feminine energy is so palpable there. They say, they being different spiritual leaders, that the Kundalini of the earth originally was seated in the Himalayas. And wherever the Kundalini energies are seated, people are awakened. And so back before it was before 2012, Kundalini energy shifted and came from Asia over to North America and moved down through Central America. Got a little help getting across the Panama Canal, which cuts our continents right in half. And then it went down and it seated itself in Lake Titicaca, which is in southern Peru. Now, we didn't actually go down there, but because it's, you know, you have to fly everywhere, and it's like, oh God, another 2 hours in the airport, another security line, another, you know, I was like, I can't do it anymore. So we didn't actually go down to that. But you can feel that energy in Peru. Now, we also got to go to Ecuador afterwards, and the energy was very different in Ecuador. I could feel the crystalline grids, but they were way deep. They were much deeper. They weren't at the surface as they were in Peru. All right, so I've just been talking there for a little bit so that people could kind of shift into those energies of Machu Picchu. And the energies, the highest, most coherent energies on the planet, which aren't everywhere on the planet yet, they represent what we're moving toward. And so I got to experience a Peru that I believe is something we're moving toward. Now, Peru had the same, you know, challenges that modern cities and countries have, but they're very conscious. They're conscious about their forests. They're conscious about their water. If we just take care of those two things, we can really do amazing things. I really wanted to tune into the forest. So after I kind of experienced Machu Picchu, for me, it was all about the land and these mountains that surrounded Machu Picchu. Like, what a place to put your home, right? You know, I live in a place that's surrounded by mountains, so I really get it. you know, the mountain represents that higher spiritual aspect that's there, but embodying it, being in an embodied state and experiencing it is really great. So just for now, I want to energetically connect people with the mountains, because to me, that's where it was incredible to think of these Incans. They're not very tall people, and building what they did, they built it over 100 years, and it never was fully finished, because then the Spaniards came down on them. Although here's the cool thing about Machu Picchu. The Spaniards never found Machu Picchu. If they had, they would have...
The energy would have been different.
Well, they would have sacked it to the ground. It wasn't discovered. Don't you love that word? It isn't real unless a white man discovers it. It wasn't discovered until 1911 by some guy, Herman, somebody or other, who was just wandering around up in there, and he kept hearing these stories from the natives about these ancient ruins. And then somebody led him, a little kid led him to Machu Picchu. And that's how they discovered it. And then they put in this amazing system to get there, because before you could only trek there. It'd take 5 days of extreme hiking to get to Machu Picchu. So now everybody, I'm literally people would go up, spend 10 minutes there, and come back down and leave. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I couldn't have done that. So I don't know. I guess they just, okay, been there, done that.
Yeah.
But there, I'm watching as we tune in, we're communicating now with those mountains and what they have for us. That crystalline nature that's very palpable up there, very strong. If you've only got enough energy to make one trip in your life, I would highly recommend Machu Picchu. It's gentle on your energy. Peru is gentle on your energy. Great food wherever you go. Hard to get a bad meal. And of course there's the whole tourism aspect there, so people are, but they're not too in your face about it. But that, so it was weird, part of us were being tourists, and we're horrible tourists, but part of us I was having this incredible sort of mystical dialogue with Machu Picchu. I did prayer work while I was there in my sleep nap meditation time. And I can feel, in my heart right now, just talking about it, it really made me, makes me tear up, because there was so much reverence there. The reverence of, that's what we need to bring back into this world, is the connections to earth. And even we old soul spiritual types aren't necessarily connected to earth. We're like, how quick can I get off of planet earth? It's too dense, it's too loud, it's too and they were the connection and oneness that the Incans had with their land was really quite amazing. Oh, potatoes. How could I forget? They have I forget how many, there's 600 kinds of potatoes, and 500 of them are from Peru or something like that. It's wow, potato city. So sorry, that was some random. It's what else do they grow beside corn?
I knew you were going to say potatoes. I knew that had to be the answer.
They were always serving potatoes in some form. Oh, this is our dish, and I'm like, I'm not interested in potatoes unless it's mashed potatoes with garlic. But they definitely, their potatoes had a different flavor than
I bet.
Ours. But so it was incredibly beautiful, and we can't go back to those times. We have to move forward and somehow work that into these modern lives that we have. I don't know how that will unfold, but the world is based on transformation. The earth is based on transformation. The universe is based on transformation. We're in chaos because that's one of the phases of transformation. And so it will we will get there to the new version of this reconnection, this honoring of the divine feminine as it is contained in earth. We will get there. I'm meaning, when I say we, I mean the earth will get there.
Yes.
Because if we don't, earth is just going to shrug us off, like, get rid of these fleas, if we don't get in alignment and calibrate to her and connect to these crystalline grids and begin to create in alignment with that, with where earth is headed. Earth is the one who's transforming. And so we can, what do they say? Lead, follow, or get out of the way. So it's sort of like that. Earth is actually leading. And so we can either co-lead with her by, working with these forces of transformation, or we can get out of the way. A lot of people are stepping off of earth right now. They're like, zoom, they're heading out. Yeah. So, that's kind of where we are.
I suppose, in with that statement, the best thing we can do is bring it in back to our own worlds and make our own worlds peaceful and beautiful, and try to change the energy within our own worlds. Like if we all just took care of our own worlds, it seems like, we could start getting somewhere.
Yes, it does. It comes to that. I think one of the most difficult things right now is that our senses are built to be, for a lot of us, our senses are like, I want to look out there so I can know what's within me. So I want to, as within, so without. I want to see reflected out there what's in me. And that's not what's happening right now. There's a disconnect there as all of that goes through change. So what is going on inside of me is not being reflected around me. And there's sadness there. We experienced that in November. There's sadness there that what's within me isn't being reflected out into the world. And everybody feels that in one way or another. Everybody, 100% of us feel that what's out there is not reflecting back to me who I am. That's because it's a world in transformation, chaos being the second phase of transformation. So the upside of chaos is extreme, or Sheila, to use your word, radical creativity. And we must, dive deep and create from our highest and best potential. We must create our own Machu Picchus within us, and then around us, and then eventually see that ripple out into the world. But one of the things I've been doing while I've been talking with you, sitting back at home on my beautiful ranch, is connecting it energetically to Machu Picchu so that it can mirror those energies. So you don't have to go all the way to Machu Picchu. You can just come here and get a little taste of that, a little hologram of the Machu Picchu energies as we step into alignment with Earth here. We connect on all ways and revere Earth as it's meant to be revered. Revere the divine feminine within that.
Right. And I want to personally say thank you for doing that, because you're not doing that just for you and your land. You do that for all of us.
Yes.
Every time somebody goes to one of those beautiful sacred places and brings that energy and harnesses it back into a world that's chaotic, they're doing it for all of us. Every time, I go down to my river and ask for this water to be blessed and cleaned. I'm not doing that just for me. I'm doing that for all the water that runs down that river. And those things count. And those are the things that we are doing in this new energy that we're creating. And it really makes me, I feel so proud to have friends like you who we understand that, and we're really working together seriously on those little things that are going to make a big difference. That's the hope that's the fire that still is bright within me, is that I haven't lost hope. And I do acknowledge all the little things that each of us are doing to change the energy. And I just want to mention briefly that you went there right after the elections, and you had what it took to stay in your energy at Machu Picchu. You did not bring that chaotic energy with you. You held your ground, and I'm so proud of you for that.
Oh, thank you, Sheila. I didn't think of that. Who would want to take that with them? But I was just a little more pragmatic about it. It's like, I'm leaving it behind.
Right.
But yes, it was definitely something that touched me deeply at a time I really needed it. And those of us who are in doing our light work, old soul spiritual work here on the planet, we have to take those moments to renew and regenerate ourselves. And that was definitely I definitely needed that. I felt like, okay, I can come back and engage again in this world. And I was excited to. I was eager to. Although it's intense here in the United States. If you are blessed to be near a border, either north or south, I highly recommend, if you can, to just take a trip across the border into a different country, and you will get to see, this isn't everywhere in the world. It's just right here. Right. And it's so intense. And to go away, your whole nervous system calms down. Everything just becomes
adjusted,
de-stressed for that. So
wow. Well, Gia, thank you so much for sharing that trip. I'm so glad we got to spend a few hours together and reconnecting, and I'm looking forward to doing a show where we talk about your healing center and
that'd be fun.
Reality of running a show like you're doing. So thank you. I hope all of you have enjoyed this. I know there's so many of you out there that loves Gia and loves hearing her updates and what she's doing. And so I thank you for joining us. From my heart to yours, namaste.
Bye.